teacher, I would work on that with them, just to sort of know where you are within the key. That can be quite helpful. And if you have advanced a bit in your theory and your harmony, something that can be helpful is to play through some of the chords within that key. So C sharp minor would be 1. You might work on 5, which would be G sharp major. One that comes up a lot in this piece is we have A major a lot in Moonlight Sonata. You might get 4 a lot, which is F sharp minor, and then you'll get a lot of dominance of these different keys. So you might have something like an F sharp minor, which would be a C sharp 7. So you might work on all the chords and scales sort of around this key signatures. Just make sure you're really comfortable with those, as well as the diminished chords and some of the dominant 7s. So that's just something to prepare and some ideas for some warm-ups you can do. Now for the actual piece itself, I'm gonna actually bring you over here to the piano, and what we will do, let's take a little look. You can see that the first page of the sonata. So what we're gonna do is work on the left hand first. I really recommend this. This is quite a melodic pattern, and that really gives us our base, our foundation. Bass, B-A-S-S and B-A-S-E. So, C sharps. Goes a little bit slower. So just get comfortable with that on its own, and so on. I would also recommend the right hand on its own, and you can see these are little patterns, but something that can be helpful is just to play them as solid chords. The solid work is helpful in that it trains the hand. This is measure 4. So I just have more of a sense. I'll show it to you down here. So you have more of a sense of what the chords are, and you can hear each of those groups as a unit rather than just the individual notes, which if you're not super familiar with the harmony can be but just ambiguous. And then we come to the really, really famous part. So just take a look at the rhythm here. So the right hand continues with the triplet, 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 triplet. So that doesn't change. The thing that changes is we add this melody on the top that's. So the easiest way to do that, again, after you've done your solid chords, I'd recommend practicing the bottom part, the triplets on their own, and you can even leave them out and then practice the melody on its own. So, so let's pretend we've done this. Solid. And so on. And then we've learned it broken. Have to modify the fingering once the top voice comes in, and so on. And then you're going to practice the top voice on its own. So you have 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. There's a little finger substitution there. So I would get confident with that. If you take a look at it, there are a lot of finger 5s, which seem funny on their own, but you realize you have to play all of this with the other fingers in the right hand, and the left hand is no help up there because it's way down here with these octaves. So then to fit this in, you can work with the exact timing, which is ideal, which is why practicing the separate voices is best. If you want to kind of cheat it, which is okay-ish, you can, so you'll play these two together, and then you'll play this G sharp right after the E. So it'll be something like this. So it's very nice of him to not have this any weird 2 against 3 or 3 against 4 timing. You still have to feel this rhythm separate from the triplet though. So I do kind of give the cheat so you know at least where to play it, but you want to really get that timing exact. It can be helpful to think 2 against, or you can think of these single eighth notes so you can time that 16th note on the end of the eighths, for those who know what that means. So the first section, we are in C sharp minor for a while. A major, D major. We're essentially in C sharp minor for this whole bit, and then we get the famous bit. So C sharp minor, and then this piece is really cool because we morph into E major. So we're about at measure 8. So we're prepping. Major, which is the relative major of your C sharp minor, so pretty straightforward key to go to. But then it's really cool, he turns it into E minor, so it's actually a minor fifth. Or sorry, a minor relative major. And then we go all over the place. We go into G7, which turns into C major, kind of. Modulation. We're not really in any key for any period of time. But he's prepping us for B minor, which is actually really interesting. Kind of E minor land, back to B minor. So I really think the really big thing with this one, and it's quite helpful, is to, let me see if you have your score, you can write down the keys that you're in. So I would write here C sharp minor, and then I would write like C sharp minor over B. So if you've ever seen pop or contemporary music, it has those chords. I would literally write those in. It doesn't really matter how you write them in as long as you know what it is. If you are studying harmony or higher level theory, you can write it in the appropriate way with Roman numerals, and however you are analyzing that, I'd really recommend doing that. Makes a lot more sense. It is easier to learn, so you think, oh, this is the B minor section, right? And you say, oh, okay, I have the preparatory dominant coming into B minor, so you actually know where you're going. Will make a lot more sense. So it's kind of that first section, and then we come into similar business in the final section. So let's talk a little bit about expression in this first bit. I'm going to bring the camera back so that I can use both hands and you can see. So that gives you a little bit of the theory knowledge. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and analyze the score for you. You can probably find some videos like that, or probably find a pre-analyzed Moonlight Sonata if you want to just have it already done for you. So there is kind of a left-hand melody. You really want to bring out those chords without making them loud, making them really expressive. Quicker tempo. There's the ever-present question. You don't want to pause or hold too much in the fourth beat of each bar, because then it starts to drag. It's tempting to kind of find that lift. I would try and get the sense of that without actually slowing down, which sounds kind of counterintuitive, but find the sense of that build. You might do that more with dynamics rather than just physically slowing down. Each little right hand triplet, we work to shape them. You don't want the thumb to be too heavy either. It's easy to just hit with the thumb quite hard. So you want to just really balance that so nothing really sticks out and we're not slowing down too much. Again, you might find a different way of expressing it, and that's fine. It is more pianissimo. I'm probably going like mezzo piano right now, but I find a lot of these dynamic marking is more the intention of it than necessarily the overall volume that you are, if that makes sense. And I definitely build as we work toward E major. And for sure you want to bring out the top melody here because that's the real melody. And then you want something that's called a color change, especially when the keys change. Here I go to E minor. So I usually maybe get a bit softer there so you actually hear that key change. So we have our E major. We don't do it a little bit automatically just because you are changing keys. It's like, oh, something has changed. Again, I feel like I'm dragging a bit, but and you can enjoy these bass notes. Again, without slowing down too much. Color change. So in this, where am I? Measure 15. There's a little left hand melody too. So like using words like enjoy the notes, you can enjoy the left hand. You don't want to say, necessarily say bring it out too much because then you get someone going, which it isn't. It's just a little bit of a lean into those. And then there's this color change again. There's like this from about measure, even really from measure 8 or 9 onward. There's this kind of mini development section. He really goes through a lot of key changes. Really after the first 4 bars, first 4 or 5 bars, we're just going through a lot of keys. So you want to just find those color changes. So I'm going from measure 14. Maybe not that loud, but that sense of like, it feels very final there, even though it does keep going. There's something very dark about that B minor key. taking out, eliminating the triplets for a bit. This is just for practice. These are some ideas. Eliminating the middle voice and then playing just the bass with the soprano and just hearing how those go together. It's kind of a duet sometimes. You can play with those. Or you can, really there's normally the three voices. You can always eliminate one and see how the other two fit together. That can help you with balance and help you figure out what you would like to bring out. Again, these are just ideas. You may have different ideas, different way of expressing it. You might not agree with me. Perhaps you or your teacher or you and your teacher have agreed to bring out something different. So these are all just suggestions. So we get to measure 20. We get a lot more modulation. Finally, an F sharp minor. We get really dark here. So our main theme, but in the form of our tonic. About the middle section. So again, it's up to you. We'll just go back to this F minor section for a second. Kind of starts here. So we get back to our main theme, but in the subdominant key. So we're in F sharp minor. So we're there. It definitely feels a lot darker. It's a little bit lower than we were in C sharp minor. We've also sort of, been listening to the piece for a bit. So it's almost more poignant in a way. And then we modulate more, which is a really nice part. Which actually brings us back to a C sharp minor kind of land. Again, I recommend, especially if you're studying, this is an awesome one to work on your harmony and like your labeling and all that. So we are at, let's go from measure 28, if you can see that guy. So let's analyze this chord a little bit. So that is, I believe, that's a diminished seventh of C sharp minor. So a diminished seventh, super quick harmony lesson. Diminished seventh, most of the sort of traditional ones, they'll start on the raised seventh of the key. So if we're in C sharp minor, harmonic, your raised seventh will be a B sharp. So you have a B sharp here. Yes, B sharp looks like a C, but it's indeed called a B sharp. And you just make minor thirds on that. It acts as a chord that will pull toward the tonic. So it sounds very dramatic, sounds very tense. In fact, this whole part, these are all just chords. Oh, except for the C sharp, or the G sharp, pardon me. So that's what gives it that pull. Feels very unresolved. And then we have it again. I'm just gonna play the left hand here. Sorry. So we had the same thing repeated twice. Very important in any piece to bring out usually the notes with the other way stem. That's a hint that that is some sort of melody or something you should pay attention to and bring out. Not that the other notes are unimportant, but we want that to be our sort of our focal point. And here he writes in the da, da, da. So this kind of hairpin thing where we build it and then we draw it back. So you want to really maximize the expression there. It makes it sound really nice. So I'm just gonna try it just with my right hand. My left hand is running the camera. And it's up to you if you want a little more pedal there, make it more Halloween-y. Again, depends on your own personal technique and what you work on. Sometimes, again, right now with one hand, sometimes these notes are played with the left hand, so you can choose if you want to bring the left hand up. I think it's just easier to do it with the right hand, but I'm gonna do the octave with my left hand too. C-sharp minor. Again, just a good idea to familiarize yourself with the chords solid. Then we do it low. I would do it there as well. You will definitely want the finger 4 on the C-sharp. It's another good point. If you're used to always using finger 3 in big chords, and it is more appropriate to use finger 4, really challenge yourself to work with finger 4. It will really improve your playing. You can work with holding them. That's how it's written. So you actually play them legato with finger 4 and 5. And then, so this is the really fun part. So this is our same diminished chord, the diminished 7th of C-sharp minor. So that's the same one here. It just looks really terrifying. What's the fingering they give you here? I'll be totally honest, I usually just fake it. I'm sure I do something along these lines. Yeah, I would actually probably put 5 there instead of 4, but it doesn't really matter. It could be a 4 or 5. What I like to do is at the end of each group, I just put like a little line. You can do whatever you want. And then I can practice those solid. So I'd probably actually do 5 there. It's up to you. I'm not gonna tell you every single finger number. So I would play this as a solid group. So you have D sharp, A, F sharp, B sharp. So that's your first group. So I know it's this diminished chord, and I think we are skipping some inversion. I think we do every second inversion, if that makes sense. So I'm not going just straight up. I'm going from this one, and then my next group is this one, and then my next group is this one. So I would just use the same fingering for all of those. 1, 2, 3, 5, and then it's just easy. So you just have those 3 groups. You have D sharp. So you can just remember D sharp, A, D sharp, which is kind of cool. It's a little lesson in the diminished chords as well, because those are just, it's just the tritone. Makes it way easier. So that's that, and yeah, I usually just do a little line, like something that simple. You can be like, okay, that's a group, that's a group, that's a group. This one's really nice in that it fits in the bar. Sometimes they're out of the bar and they start kind of with a weird pickup or something, so they might not look that straightforward on the page. So that's a really nice one. Next one, similar kind of idea. I would call these either a broken triad or a sort of alternating arpeggio, whatever you want to call it. And I think it'd be the same idea here. So we're in C-sharp minor, we're in the home key. So this one's really cool to show you, because we have this, and then this little guy, actually I think it's the 1 and 2. Let me just triple check. You'll notice we don't have a full group. We just kind of have 1, 2. Let me just triple check this. Yeah, and I would just leave 2 there, and then also make this 2. Again, you might have something a little bit different that you prefer. So it would be this group of 4. This is my first group. C-sharp minor. So this is where the warm-ups are really important. So if you had the time to practice your C-sharp minor 4-note chords, that makes this way easier. So that's the first one. And then the next one isn't a full one. It's just 1 and 2, because then we morph up to a different, And I would, just to be picky, I would put finger 4 there. So that's just me. Again, you might have different fingering. You might have a different pattern for that. We just want to avoid the little basic going, 1 and 2s. If you do that, that's fine. You'll get through it. But this is a little more stable, and it'll help you build better technique, which is what we want every time we learn something, is to get a little bit better. So then I might even do something like practicing solid through all of those. This is the hardest part of the piece. So I practice these, and then, and don't worry, sometimes you'll practice the solid groupings. They don't line up with the beats necessarily, but it's just the idea of playing the chunks, and then you can figure out the timing. Yeah, let me play that. Ta-da! And then we have a new diminished chord, which is preparing us for well, we go through a bunch. So I would do a similar thing here with we call them hand groups. I think it works out. Same idea. We're doing a tritone, so it's C sharp is your root in that moment. And I haven't analyzed this enough. I don't know what this is diminished seventh of at this point in the piece. We're modulating a bunch, so if you want to let me know in the comments, you can let me know, because it could be a couple things. So we have that group. Basically, anytime you see a thumb in these ones, you can kind of guess that'll be that. Again, I'd make that 5. Just so we're always doing the same fingering. So you'd have this guy. I'll just use one quick. So C sharp, F double sharp, C sharp. The other cool thing is, once you've done this for a couple bars, and if it's a similar pattern, it's gonna be way faster to learn the next one. So every time you do one, and every time you do this process in a piece, it's gonna be faster for you to work through that process and learn the piece. Okay, we have one more. Oops. It's the same idea, and you'll get faster at seeing them too. This is a really great way to help you read. Again, I would do finger 5. I don't know why they keep doing that. It does make sense, but I think just for ease of learning, I would just use 4 there. Let me just see this one. Just keep that on the book. Actually, I'm gonna keep it here. Sorry. Oh, that's why. And sometimes you put the line, oopsie, in the wrong spot, and that will happen. And you have to do that. I was like, why is this so weird? And then we do a descending one. So it should be the same. This is actually all the same group, as is my understanding. So from here, excuse the smudge, proper eraser. So from here to here, this should all be the same grouping, and I will just test that. Yeah, and I would just keep this the same thing. Like, really, I'm just finding a way to make it as efficient as possible. And then you'll just do the same thing on the way down. I would just make that 5 again. So it's the same idea, just descending. Sometimes you're starting partway through the grouping, the hand grouping, not the rhythm grouping. So you might be partway through the group, but at the beginning of a new bar or beginning of a new rhythmic pattern. So don't let that that confuse you. Yeah, and then you just keep descending like that. Okay, so you do the same thing. You're descending. Again, really awesome to practice your chords and such before working on this piece, so you know where you're going. And then we have the kind of this melody idea. So we're in diminished land, and then starting here, you're going to bring out the ba, 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 ba. It's amazing how much he can do just with really simple steps of notes, you know, hot cross buns, and it just sounds really, really powerful because of the chords they're set in. So yeah, and you could do a solid practice. And in these groups, I would even include, because there is the passing tones or neighbor tone, whichever one, however they're calling it now in harmony. And then we change. And we come back. actually in our home key as well. It's tempting to speed up in this section. I know my tempo has been all over the place during this tutorial, but we'll talk about tempo at the end. So it's really important to stay with your tempo for this entire section. So working nice and steady through that. I'd recommend even working with a metronome, so you know sort of internally where that click is. So then, yeah, we come back to our A section. So we're in C sharp minor, blah, blah, blah. And then we end up in E major. I think this one's different in that we stay in E major. So that's the relative major of our key signature of our C sharp minor. Let's call it the B section. But in our home key. So if you've worked really hard on this bit and you're good with the balance, this part shouldn't be too much harder. Again, you have those ninths. So there I meant measure, the end of measure 51, pick up to measure 52. So this ninth just feels a little bit harder because of where the sharps are. So if you can't reach it, you can just cheat and leave out that bottom C sharp. And I think this part's really interesting because you have to keep driving the melody, again, without rushing. Finally, the left hand gets to do the melody there, the main theme. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. So to time it, I would count the and. So I go 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and so my 16ths were a little too fast. 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and he does this a lot in a lot of his pieces. And then the right hand, it's triplet city, which has been for the entire piece. Just kind of the little coda there. So to review a few little concepts, I would work on just being familiar with the key signature, maybe getting your theory knowledge up there. If you have the time just to study the piece, you know what key you're in, it really does make it a lot easier. Kind of secondary dominants and diminished chords. Some of the dominant sevenths you'll need as well. I'd get your technique up to snuff. So even if you just know the C minor scale, the different variations, or sorry, C sharp minor, your triads for sure, and maybe even your 4-note chords. Sorry, I'm doing this through the camera and it's really weird. There's a really slight delay. Being comfortable with octaves, especially in the left hand, so you might work on some octave scales. I would spend some time with the left hand, just getting really comfortable here. One last thing I didn't talk about with the left hand is you want to avoid collapsing. So if it looks like this, you want to try and pull up a little bit through that finger, so it's really nice and strong there, and then keep that. Say you went to this chord, the G sharp major or G sharp 7. You just want to keep that nice foundation, nice and strong there, and whatever key we're in. Obviously, it's not that loud, but you want that technique in your palm. So you want that going. So again, I think the trickiest part is this middle section with the diminished sevenths. So you want to focus on that. Work the little groups. They're not so bad once you work on them, and a lot of them are a very similar pattern. So finally, I think I'll play it for you, and then I'll just talk through. I'll play a little section for you, and I'll talk through some of the concepts as we go. So the main one would be the expression in the piece. You want a nice balance. You don't want it to feel too tripletty. You want it to feel nice and smooth. Not being too fast or too slow. Don't hang out too much on the fourth beat. I know it's really tempting. But you can play with it. You can make it crazy dramatic. It's a little much. You can play with that though if you're a student or if you're working with a student. You want to hear not only just the three notes of the triplet themselves, but the individual notes. How to explain this? Individual notes within the triplet and sort of where they lead, the voice leading. So, for example, I was at measure 4. Pardon me. Hearing that F sharp lead me to the E. Again, not making too much of a big deal. Enjoy the melody, really enjoy the left hand. It doesn't say, but I like to do a bit of a bell toward E major. time to balance those final chords. You might even take, a few minutes every day to literally just play the C sharp minor chord, and here you would like to balance it. I suggest finger 4 on the top, which gives you a little more control than the pinky. If you feel like using pinky, that's also fine. We don't want to do too much of that. So play with how that balanced out. It might be different piano to piano. If you have any other questions about this piece and some tips to learn it, you're welcome to ask me in the comments. I will try my best to answer your questions. And just for your information, this sonata, from Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, the first movement, it's at about grade 8, used to be at least, Royal Conservatory level, so it's over the back of your mind. You can definitely learn the first section. If you feel just like playing it for fun, there are editions that sort of cut down some of the octaves and some of the trickier chords. What you could always do is learn the first page, the first section, and then you could cut to somewhere perhaps around measure 42. We come back to the main themes. You could leave out some of that middle section if you're just playing it for enjoyment and you want to have something that sounds like a full piece. You could also do that. I mean, I wouldn't perform it, in a festival or an exam type setting and say that's the piece. They would obviously know it's not the whole piece. And thanks for watching this tutorial. Again, if you have any other questions, feel free to leave those in the comments. If you do enjoy these tutorials and my other videos, you're welcome to support me on my Patreon channel. I'll leave the link below for you, and I'll also leave the link for a couple of my performances of Moonlight Sonata so you can have a listen to those and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.